Welcome back to Southpaw Picks, and you're here with your host Charles, and this is UFC London, Aspinall versus Volkov, and we got an excellent card ahead of us. 12 fights on the docket. We did lose the Nathaniel Wood, Vince Morales fight, but all in all, still a very well put together card. I got a lot of English talent, got a lot of European talent, got some guys we haven't seen in a couple of years, the return of Gunnar Nelson. It's going to be an awesome show, and the debut of the prophesized Muhammad Mokaev. So we got ourselves a full show, and it kicks off at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. I love my MMA in the afternoon. Now we got some Cage Warriors going off here in the background. I got a couple plays on Cage Warriors, but nothing too crazy. Ben Ellis came for the win for us. But before we get into this card, we got to quickly talk about the recap last week. We go 10-4 last week on the recap, and we ended up profiting plus 7.5 units. Now, it would have been slightly profitable had I not taken that live bet on Matthew Zettelsberger after round 1. Now, I did predict Matthew Zettelsberger in my plays, in the prediction video, but I didn't make it official play. After watching that fight and seeing the first round transpire, I looked at the live line and I saw I could get Matthew Zettelsberger at a wonderful dog line. I took the shot and he won the next 2 rounds, so that propped us up to profit 1.75 units and continue our 2020 up, right? We're not in the negative, we're a plus 9 units, and we're going to continue the streak going on to UFC London now. Let's kick it off right at the main event. We got Alexander Draco Volkov versus Tom Aspinall. And if you know a little bit about these two, this is the coming out party, which is suspected here for Tom Aspinall. Very big heavyweight, 6'5", very light in his feet, quick hands, quick twitch, great boxing combinations. Has a jiu-jitsu black belt to his credentials. We've only seen it come into play once against Andrei Arlovsky, and we've only seen Tom Aspinall really get a couple minutes into the second round. Now, he is very fast. He is very powerful. This is a 5-round fight. This is his first fight in the UFC under the lights, main event, first 5-rounder. And he's coming in as the favorite. When he was the slight underdog in the matchup, it made a lot of sense to just roll the dice with Tom Aspinall. But now he's the favorite. You really got to think back now. Shouldn't be sleeping on the credentials of Volkov, right? He's won 3 out of his last 5 coming in. Lost it to Sergei, who, debatably was a round away from taking the belt from Francis, but didn't dig deep. Dropped for the heel hook, as you know. If Gunn doesn't drop for that heel hook and give up bottom position to Francis, he's a champion, right? So a loss to the champion, and then a really drawn-out fight with the best wrestler in the division in Curtis Blades. Now, notable wins on this record is Walt Harris, and this win is very important to this breakdown coming up. A win over Walt Harris, a win over Alistair Overeem, finished both those guys. And then a very scrappy fight with Marcin Tybura, but not a fight where he looked all that good. Now, if there's anything notable about what I've seen coming in here, Volkov is 10 pounds lighter than his last few fights, right? Probably going to compensate for the speed of Tom Aspinall here. He has only 3 inches of reach, 2 inches of height, but Tom Aspinall's a big boy. But when we really look at the resume here, right? First round finish over Jake Collier, right? Former middleweight. Alan Baudot, he finished him in the first round, but arguably the worst heavyweight on the roster in the UFC. Andrei Arlovsky, right? 40 years old. I mean, the first round was competitive. I thought Tom Aspinall emptied out the clip and couldn't get it done. And then surprised Arlovsky with the takedown. Arlovsky didn't even defend the choke after. That was a pretty easy win. Andrei just gave it up, right? He's 40 fights in. He felt, no, I'm not getting this big guy off my back. And he tapped out before I thought the choke was even locked in. And then Sergei Spivak, which is probably his most impressive win, and a win where he came over the top with that elbow and finishes Sergei again in the first round. Now, man, Drago has so much experience. And Drago has never been finished, right? Except for, he's been finished once out of his whole career to Derek Lewis by punches, right? I think he had a loss by submission later in his career. but most recently in the UFC, only finished once by punches to one of the most devastating knockout punchers in Derek Lewis. Man, Alexander Volkov got a lot of experience. He's just very slow early, but you gotta wonder if Aspinall doesn't get him out in the first round or early second, just how this fight plays out. I see a lot of comparisons of Tom Aspinall to Sergei. No, Tom Aspinall is extremely boxing heavy. Sergei offers so much looks from the left hand, the right hand, the left kick, the right kick. There's just so much moves Sergei offers. It's not the same. Although a very talented heavyweight, he's 11-2 going up against somebody with 41 professional fights in a 5-round bout. Man, Volkov is slower, but he's got a good jab. He's got good front kicks to the stomach, right, when he took out Wall Harris. And that was an interesting fight when I was running that tape back, because Wall Harris had the speed advantage over Volkov, right? There was numerous times you saw Volkov having to just poke the jab out there and prod with the kicks, and break down Walt Harris, who's, you know, speed-wise, I mean, fairly comparable to Tom Aspinall. Although, you know, Tom Aspinall has a lot more jiu-jitsu credentials. It was the fact that we saw Volkov operate with somebody who has a speed advantage with knockout power. And I really like this. And over 5 rounds, man, I just don't see Tom Aspinall getting him out in the first round. I think this is a very big moment for him. And sometimes you need a little step back in your career. So although I was on Tom Aspinall leading up to this matchup, I'm going to take a step back here, and I'm going to side with the 41-fight veteran, Alexander Volkov, because I do not see Tom Aspinall getting him out in the first round. He's too experienced, you know, and he's not going to get landed on clean, right? Alex is going to poke that jab out. So my pick is going to be Alexander Volkov at that slight dog money. I'm going against the hometown headliner here, right? I don't like how people are just bunching him up with Sergei. He's not that yet. He's 11-2. Alexander Volkov, a 41-fight veteran and an excellent kickboxer. So I'm going to go with Alexander Volkov, and I'm going to take him to win by decision, or he could find a late stoppage in the 4th round. Moving on down to my favorite fight of the night, the co-main event. Maybe I shouldn't say that so early, but honestly, the most compelling fight of the night to me. I just been watching tape on this fight because I really want to get involved with a card with so much heavy favorites and some guys you don't want to trust at those heavy lines. Seeing these guys at minus, even pick them slightly. Arnold Allen, and I saw Hooker was the favorite. Money's coming on both sides. Arnold Allen, you already know, 5'8", 70-inch reach. He's going to be at a 5.5-inch reach advantage. He's going to be at a, 3-4-inch height advantage here. You know Dan Hooker's coming down from the lightweight division, where he went up against the likes of Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev. And yes, he's coming in losing 3 out of his last 5. But the caliber of opponents, right? Poirier's fighting for a title. Michael Chandler fought for a title. Islam, the heir apparent at this point. Now, the last 2 wins here, I had Paul Felder in that Dan Hooker fight, right? I rewatched that fight. I kind of thought Paul Felder may have won the middle rounds 2, 4, and 5. I know Hooker got that takedown, which kind of sealed it for the hometown bias. But it was a very competitive fight at that spot. And these are bigger dudes, right? The one thing I got to say about Dan Hooker, he puts on fan-friendly fights. That's why he's one of my favorite fighters to watch, right? But, he does engage in these brawls. Arnold Allen is very crisp, covers up very well, has excellent striking defense, has decent power, right? He's a physical specimen. Now, the only thing that bothers me about Arnold Allen is, yes, some of the competition here, Jordan Rinaldi, no, that's not worth nothing. Gilbert Melendez on his way out, that's worth nothing. Nick Lentz on his way out, that's not worth nothing. And then Sadiq Youssef, a featherweight contender in that regard, but not a top 5 featherweight, right? Not a top 10 featherweight. So you're sitting here, has Arnold Allen been tested like this? No. But this is a setup for the hometown kid. Now, Hooker is dropping 10 extra pounds, right? He fought at featherweight before we went 3-3. I love Dan Hooker, but if there's something that is notable, this record is 21-11, right? He's okay with just having a fight, right? He's not always there to win, I feel. He's there to do his best and put on a fight. And I could so see Dan Hooker just showcasing that he's an absolute problem here at the featherweight division. But Arnold Allen's power, his body work, his physical strength, I just think it's going to come into play. I feel like Dan Hooker might think he's going to be physically stronger than Arnold Allen here, but I don't see it going down. And trust me, there's some things that bother me with Arnold Allen as far as his volume, right? He threw 3 strikes, I believe, or 2 strikes in the 3rd round in his last fight, and that's just, it's horrible, right? Against a guy like Dan Hooker who's throwing, 200 plus strikes every fight, Nasrat Haqparast right now, I just can't value that win. To me, that's not a valuable win. Paul Felder's retired. You really start to dig deep in Dan Hooker, and it's like, yeah, he came up here on a run from Al Quinto, who, like I said, his wins are very similar to Bobby Green's wins. If you look at it, Nasrat, Al Quinta, he got Gilbert Burns. That was a good one. Mark Diakese, but that's 3 years ago at this point. As much as I love Dan Hooker, as much as everything inside of me wants to see him pull this off, I just feel like he's gotten to this point where he's a little comfortable with losing, and he's just going to go out there and put on a show. And if this fight is close, I want to go with the hometown kid here in Arnold Allen. I'm going Arnold Almighty Allen, and he's going to continue this, about 11 fight win streak if he takes this W. Yeah, 10 fights in a row, right? And he's been in the octagon since he was a baby, right? Even though he's been very inactive and taking his time, got to go with Arnold Almighty Arnold Almighty Allen at the co-main event spot, and I think he's going to win, sadly, by knockout to my boy Dan, the Hangman Hooker, and he's coming in at a pick'em line, but a very tough fight to call. Moving on down, we got Paddy the Baddy Pimblett versus Rodrigo Kazula Vargas. Now, listen, I'm going to come out and say it, right? I bet against Paddy in his UFC debut. I had Luigi Vandermini. For the first couple minutes of that fight, I felt like a genius. I felt like everything was rolling. That chin was up. He was getting rocked, but he dug deep, and he finished Luigi, right, in the first round. Like he says, right? I like this guy. I like Paddy the Baddy. He's an entertainer. He's beatable, though. He's definitely not going to be contending for no belts here in the UFC at the lightweight division with all these killers, but this is a showcase fight for him. Kazula Vargas, to me, honestly, striking is horrible. I think he overcommits in these spots. I think he's tough though, right? He's gritty. If Paddy comes out here and tries to really, fulfill another promise and get him out in the first round, that pace he set with Luigi Vandermini, I don't know if he keeps that, with a guy in Rodrigo Vargas who could be a little grindy, right? Even though his striking is a little off, in my opinion, he's tough. If Paddy can't put him away, you wonder if Paddy starts to slow down, if the toughness of Vargas could kind of carry him out through the rest of this fight. Let's just be real. As far as this goes, minus 630 for Paddy the Baddy. That is unbettable. The best play I'll give you guys here, if you guys want to bet this, is probably the under. The fight don't go the distance. You probably get that at minus 300, so you don't got to deal with the minus 600. Because I do believe if Paddy doesn't get it done early, I don't know. I don't think he's going to last with a tough guy like Kazula Vargas all the way to the end, right? Kazula wants to steal that hype, and I think he's going to be willing to take a bunch of risks in this spot. But Kazula is at a 2-inch height disadvantage, and not only that, Paddy's coming in here with the reach advantage as well. And you got to take into accountability just how decent of a grappler Paddy is. I could see him taking him down in the first round and getting a rear naked choke while everything's fresh. Remember, this arena is going to be jumping for this guy. And sometimes in these situations, sometimes people fall victim to the hype. So I'm going to go with Paddy the Baddy without getting into it too much. Paddy the Baddy, first round submission. And I'm going to say it's a rear naked choke or a guillotine. Moving on down here, we got the return of Gunnar Nelson Gunny versus Takashi Sato. Now, the face-off for this, actually, I was very happy to see this face-off. They have Gunnar Nelson here listed at 5'11", 72-inch reach advantage, okay? And they got Takashi Sato listed at 5'10". Now, I saw those guys face off, right, in the ceremonial weigh-ins. Takashi Sato was way bigger than him, right? Gunnar Nelson is a grappler, so it's not like, the fight's really going to be having to play on the feet too long, but it does start on the feet, right? Gunnar Nelson has these karate-like entries. His hands are down. He's been out for how long now? Last fight 2 years, 4 months ago. He's having a kid, going right under the bright lights and 20,000 fans, right? Taking this, and Takashi taking this fight on short notice, coming out of Sanford MMA. Like, look at these losses for Takashi. Bilal Muhammad and Miguel Baeza. These guys are legit, right? His only win in the UFC being Jason Witt, a guy that and Ben Saunders, guys that we've seen that are definitely not prime prospects, but he took them out, man. He took out these older guys. He has the power. He has a decent shot in this spot. Now, another situation here where we got Gunny at minus 500. And although I do believe if he can get Takashi Soto to the ground, he's going to submit him. I also believe it's true as if Takashi can land just one shot early, and I do believe this, one shot early and rattle Gunnar Nelson, stuff one takedown in the process while the crowd's going crazy and follow up with an uppercut. I think he could put Gunnar Nelson to sleep. I like the under in this fight. Another fight where, I really don't want to get involved at Gunnar at minus 500. And as much as Takashi Soto has shown, a vulnerability to grappling, plus 375 is a good tag. Man, I just like the fight not going the distance, but I'm going to come out and take a crazy dog shot here for the predictions. I'm going to say Takashi Soto shocks the UK masses with a first-round KO of Gunnar Nelson. 2 years is a long time to be away from this sport. Even though look at these losses, right? Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, Santiago Ponzinibbio, right? These are fantastic losses to have on your resume. But I'm going to say the younger and more active fighter, Takashi Soto, will land the blow. So I'm going to Takashi Soto, first round KO. And confidence level, not 1,000% on that one, but I can see it happening. He's got the size. He's got the power. Gunnar's been out. This is a big spot for Gunnar's return. Moving on down the card, we got a flyweight bout between Molly Meatball McCann versus Luana Carolina. Now, I'm going to start over here with Luana, a fighter that I bet on as an underdog many times. Many times, man. She's absolutely solid as far as coming up from being a big, huge underdog, right? Plus 200 against Lupi Godinez on short notice. Polyana Battaglia, very close fight, but she took that as a dog as well. Erin Lipsky, I bet her on that one too. That was a loss for me. Priscilla Cachoeira took her here. It's kind of funny to see I bet on her 3 out of her 4 fights, and only one she's been wrong for me. On the other side here, I gotta say Molly McCann, I've taken her in. Let's see here. I bet her against Talia Santos early on, and I was woken up to how much of a beast Talia Santos is. Laura Procopio, I bet against Molly in that spot. And I bet against Molly in this spot here against Junyoung Kim, and she really turned that around in the 3rd round. Now, Molly McCann is going to be at a 2-inch height advantage, 2-inch height disadvantage, and a 7-inch reach advantage. But as much as I love Carolina here, I went back and really dug deep on this particular matchup. When you got a girl like Molly McCann, who's very boxing-centric and crashes the pocket, and then you got a girl like Luana Carolina who likes to really work that tie plum and throw knees. This fight is gonna be all over the place. It's gonna have a lot of engagements. The one thing I don't like about Luana Carolina, even from watching her, is that all that length, she doesn't throw straight down the pipe. She kind of loops a bit of her shots. And Molly being a shorter fighter, she's gonna have to be pinpoint with those jabs down the middle. And she hasn't shown that. Not like she can't turn it around in this fight, but when she's being pressured, she doesn't seem to throw it down the pipe. She doesn't seem that physically strong as well, where I'd give Molly McCann the physical edge. Molly is a hometown favorite. The crowd is going to be going crazy for Molly Meatball. She's a very fun fighter, very crisp boxing, decent wrestling. And another thing too with Luana Carolina, with that Muay Thai stance, she really stays on the center line. I could really see Molly landing a lot of early blows and kind of rattling the very frail frame of Luana Carolina. Now, crazy to say, I've had more success betting with Luana Carolina, but in this spot, I really just see a path for victory with Molly. Just the way she fights, the bobbing and weaving, and the fact that Luana doesn't really throw that straight, and she's not that physically strong. I can really see Molly McCann overwhelming her. And just like we saw in that Junyoung Kim fight, where it was very back and forth. Jim McKim throws way straighter punches and's got way more power, in my opinion, than Luana Carolina. And she was just not able to deter the pressure of Molly McCann. I think Molly McCann's winning the third round. So I just need her to win the first two. And with the crowd on her side, and we already know how these English judges are, they really do lean to the hometown kids. I love this. It's going to be a close fight. Molly McCann's going to have the more significant shots. One of my favorite plays on the card, Molly McCann by unanimous decision. Moving on down to the main card opener, we got Jai, the country Bama, Herbert versus Ilia Topuria, El Matador. If you know, you know, man. Ilia Topuria is probably one of the most dangerous, scariest prospects that we've seen in the featherweight division for some time. Knockout over Damian Jackson, which you've seen that win is aging like fine wine, right? Knockout over Ryan Hall, submission specialist. And then we got Jai Herbert coming off his only win to Kamal Worthy. Now, Jai Herbert is way taller and got almost an 8-inch reach advantage over Ilia Topuria here, as Ilia is fighting up in weight. This is a lightweight bout. But without getting into the semantics here, Jai Herbert is bigger, but he's very skinny, man. He looks very drawn out at this weight class. And there is an avenue for him to land early and stick a nice shot on Ilia Topuria and knock him out, right? He does have the power. He does have crisp boxing. But, you know, he's been finished by both UFC talents. Francisco Trinaldo, a fight he was winning until he got cracked in the late round. Renato Moicano by submission, as you know, just dominating pressure, which is a very similar fight to what I expect to see here. Even though Renato definitely was a lightweight and sized up really well with Jai Herbert, I think Ilia Topuria's pressure, he's going to get inside there, he's going to land body shots, he's going to go for takedowns. I think he's the physically stronger individual, even though he's the smaller individual. This guy's a monster of a prospect, but at minus 500, no, it's not bettable. Another one of these things where I think instead of taking these big heavy favorites, take the fight to finish, because some of these big underdogs, if they do win, have an avenue to win, and it is by stopping their opponents. So without going in it too crazy, Jai Herbert does throw straight shots down the pipe, decent teep kicks, but I just feel like Ilia Topuria is going to get up on in him, crash the pocket, rip to the body, Greco-Roman style takedown, take the back, and submit him in under 2 rounds. And I like Ilia Topuria by submission. Moving on down to the prelim headliner, we got Grundy versus Makwan Amirkhani at the featherweight bout. 2 grapplers coming in here. As we know, Makwan is on a 3-fight losing streak, and Mike Grundy is on a 2-fight losing streak. Mike Grundy losing to the likes of Lando Venata and Movsar Evloev. Now, Lando Venata came down from lightweight, and he looked great. He looked great to me. You know, he was fast, he was crisp. I thought that was a real impressive performance. I don't think Mike Grundy was expecting Lando Venata to look so good at featherweight. Movsar Evloev, very, very highly touted prospect. In a fight where I thought Mike Grundy had a very good account for himself. Really took down a guy in Movsar who's a great grappler. Took him down numerous times. Almost had him in a nasty choke in the first round. He was able to survive by the skin of his teeth. Now, Mike Grundy is 35 years old. I heard a story. His father died, and he is coming in here with a little bit of emotions on his chest. And then we got Makwan Amirkhani, a guy with, you know, slick jiu-jitsu. And as you can see, he's lost 4 out of his last 5. But look at these names. Shane Burgos by TKO. Edison Barbosa. Camelo Kirk. I thought he won that fight despite not getting it. But it was close. It was too close to even let that transpire. And then 4 months ago, he got devastated with a knee by Lerone Murphy after dominating the first round here. And Lerone Murphy is no joke. But that was 4 months ago, guys. Makwan Amirkhani got lost by like bad KO, like stiffening KO 4 months ago. I don't think that's enough time, right? Especially considering the amount of fights he had in just that year span, right? Edison, Camelo Kirk, Lerone Murphy. You know, Mike Grundy, not the best striker, but he's got pop. He's got a nasty overhand right. He also has great grappling credentials on his side as well. I feel like he's just going to be the better... he's going to be the better physical athlete. I feel like he's going to have a lot more attrition here as far as gas tank goes. I like seeing Mike Grundy in all these third rounds where he's continuing to push the pace versus Makwan, who you kind of see his gas tank fade from round to round, his body language. He throws these lazy strikes. He is sharp in that first round. He could catch Mike Grundy in that first round with something spectacular, but if he doesn't, I just see Mike Grundy just kind of outwilling him here, being more of a competitor here. Another guy very similar to Dan Hooker that, you know, very talented, but really developing a habit of just coming in there and losing, right? And 4 months ago, coming off a stiffening KO, I think this is a setup spot for Mike Grundy to go out big. And I like Mike Grundy by second round knockout of Amirkhani. I mean, 4 months. He got stiffened KO'd 4 months ago. I was watching the film. I said, what? This is a quick turnaround. I don't think you recover from a knockout that bad in 4 months. I think the UFC knows what they're doing. A tailor-made matchup here from Mike Grundy where it's going to be a grappling bout. He's not going to have to worry about, you know, being scared on the feet, right? And if he doesn't get the takedown, being discouraged. You know, there will be grappling transition. There will be takedowns on both sides. And I do believe Mike Grundy has the physicality and the power advantage here. I think this is Makwan Amirkhani's pink slip fight, and I think he will leave the UFC on a 4-loss losing streak. My pick is Mike Grundy by second round KO. Moving on down the card, we got Shamil Abdurakhimov versus Sergei Pavlovich. Sergei Pavlovich is just a heavy-hitting physical freak, 6'3", 84-inch reach, going up against Shamil, who very similar situation to Makwan Amirkhani. 4 months ago, he at least got 3 more weeks. 4 months ago, coming off a brutal KO to Chris Daukaus, where he got pretty much knocked out in the first round, and then got knocked out in the second round. Just absolutely a slobber knocker, spit flying everywhere type of KO. And Sergei Pavlovich, a guy who, you know, beating up guys like Marcelo Gom, like nobodies, Maurice Green, nobody, right? Shamil's definitely been fighting higher level talent here, if you look at it, as far as Marcin Tybura, Curtis Blades, Chris Daukaus. But it's very clean to see. Shamil's 40 years old, coming off a 2-year layoff. He had a collapsed lung incident, looked really, you know, bad. Had a bad account for himself against Chris Daukaus, got KO'd. And now he's coming here 4 months later against an even heavier power puncher who's got 8 inches of reach on him. Sergei Pavlovich, first round KO. You already know Shamil's not going to be here to fight and push through. You know, where does his career go from here with a win? He's just going to get fed to another hungry lion. These guys trained with each other before, so maybe Sergei takes it easy on him. You know, maybe he doesn't go to just destroy him in the first round. It could be one of these things where it plays out maybe over a minute and a half. But I like Sergei Pavlovich by knockout, right? And that's just how I see this fight going. It's juiced up. The knockout prop, he's minus 300. That's not too bad of a tag considering Shamil, very similar to Makwan Amirkhani. And you see they got it back-to-back. 2 guys who got fatally KO'd 4 months ago. They got them back-to-back leading up into the main card. They want you guys to buy these fights. They want to see someone laid out. And I think this is going to happen. I think we're going to see back-to-back KOs. One from Pavlovich, one from Mike Grundy. I like Sergei first round KO. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes over the 1.5 and he takes it easy on his little former training partner and gets him out in the second round. But Sergei by KO, you know, you might want to round prop that just for some fun. Moving on down, very interesting fight here. A light heavyweight matchup between Nikita Krylov versus Paul Craig Bearju and Nikita the Miner. Now, 27-8 for Nikita Krylov coming in here. He's 1-1, losing to Magomed Ankalaev, and a very grueling decision to Johnny Walker. And you look at some of these prior fights, right? Split decision to Glover Teixeira, the champion. He gets his revenge on Open St. Preux with a rear naked choke, and then losing to Jan Blachowicz, a champion as well. Now we go on the other side here. Paul Craig coming in on a 4-fight win streak. If we exclude the draw, Jamal Hill, armbar, Mauricio Shogun, and Gazarmid Antituglov, and Vincenzo Mejera, 2 guys that are no longer in the UFC, and a guy in Mauricio Shogun who's old, very old. Now the surprise here was he took Jamal Hill's arm in a situation where Jamal Hill chose as a minus 300 favorite to engage Paul Craig on the only avenue he had to win the fight. Now that was very disappointing on behalf of people who bet Jamal Hill, because you're thinking, man, you're lighting this guy up on the feet. Why take it there? Now we have another interesting situation and a guy who plays a similar game plan, right? He likes to take the fight to the ground, where Paul Craig is very dangerous. He's very offensive there. Probably has the best grappling in the light heavyweight division that we see when it comes to ripping apart people's limbs. But strength of schedule, don't be fooled of the win-loss here on Nikita Krylov. He's got great kickboxing, great body kicks, great straight punches down the pipe. Paul Craig, to me, doesn't have the skill set to swing with him on the feet. He's definitely going to want to take this fight to the ground. And Nikita's been going to the ground, and it makes you worried, right? Even that one fight here with Johnny Walker, where late in the second round, you saw Nikita start to really tire. And Johnny Walker, who, you know, maybe has this in his back pocket and we're underestimating, Johnny Walker pulls a nice sweep, gets the fight, gets on top after being on bottom for majority of the round, and starts landing nasty elbows on Nikita Krylov, to the point where, man, it didn't look like Nikita was going to get up after that. But I was wrong. He gets up after that and wins the third round and wins the fight. Now against Magomed, he had a great first round, and then Magomed had said, hey, I'm not going to play around here, and started going for the takedowns in round 2, round 3. The significant strike advantage is going to Nikita. The strength of schedule is going to Nikita. The youth advantage is going to Nikita. But Paul Craig is such a live wire if this becomes a scramble fest. I'm going to go with Nikita Krylov here, but I'm very terrified of what Paul Craig could do in an instantaneous moment. One mistake, he could snatch up a limb. He's very good from guard, but he's a one-round fighter. If this fight proceeds past the first round, Nikita got this, man. He's got this, and he's probably going to break Paul Craig in that regard. I like Nikita Krylov by second round TKO, and I think he fights out of a submission that's really close and finishes it off with ground and pound strikes right close to the cage, late second round. Moving on down to another interesting fight on this card. This card is loaded, man. Be there at 1:30 p.m. because this card is loaded. We got Jack Tank Shore versus Timur Lucky Valiev. Jack Shore is undefeated and is currently riding a 27-fight win streak if you include his amateur experience, right? Jack Shore is a heavy smothering grappler. You see his striking starting to make its little way. Decent jabs, decent shots down the pocket, and he's got a significant size advantage here to me. 4 inches of reach, 2 inches in height. Now, Timur Valiev, what a live wire here. Just throws a whole bunch of strikes, head kicks, hook kicks, shots to the body, spinning back kicks. He's very wild. He uses a lot of energy early, and he's coming off 2 back-to-back wins where he just grinded out Martin Day, wins a close fight with Raoni Barcelos, and then obviously here's a no contest, but we know in that fight he gassed out, beaten Trevin Jones up, and Trevin Jones lands the lucky shot and knocks him out and finishes him. Now, if you really discount that, Valiev hasn't been beaten in 5 years. I'm a huge fan of Jack Shore here, and I do worry that if Valiev blows his load in that first round, that Jack Shore could win a decision here. But I'm looking at the competition here for Jack Shore. Lidovich Shalinian, not that high level. Hunter Azure, split decision. He's not in the UFC anymore. Aaron Phillips, I don't even think he's has a win in the UFC, right? Nolan Hernandez, not actively fighting. These are guys that are not legit to me. These are not legit wins. I know they're bringing them along slow here. A lot of people are taking that dog shot on Jack Shore. It opened up very wide, and now it's a pick'em. And I think we are getting Timur Valiev at a steal here at -125. Just the talent he has. He could grapple. He's got pace. He's got excellent striking skills. Jack Shore's only a way to beat him is to smother him. Absolutely smother him, and I just don't see that. I see Timur scrambling and letting off a whole bunch of shots Jack Shore is not used to in this big moment here in the UK. I love what they've done here. I love what we're getting. I love that the market is just going all in on Jack Shore because we are going to zig here and we're going to take these discount odds. The books are becoming keen to things, right? They opened Valiev as a massive favorite, and sure, you want Jack Shore at +180, +170. I get that. But now we're getting Timur Valiev at pick'em, right? I like this here. I love this spot. He's a Dagestani fighter, and he's training over there with Mark Henry and Frankie Edgar, you know, very high-class wrestlers. Jack Shore, I don't think he's faced anybody of this caliber yet, right? And 15-0, 27 wins in a row. You know, if the fight doesn't go his way in front of this crowd, we might see him wilt, this young guy. He's 27. He's got a lot of time to grow. So even a loss here for Jack Shore, he still's got tons of time to become a better fighter. I'm going to go with Timur Valiev in this spot, and I think he'll win by a split decision here. I could see Jack Shore having some success. But overall, I just feel like you got to bring a lot more to the table than just being a grappler to beat Timur Valiev. He is an elite bantamweight, and he is still in his prime. At 18-2, the one loss he had, other than his first loss in his career, he avenged immediately, and that loss was very questionable. It was a split decision. I like Timur Valiev here, and I like him to win by late stoppage, but I'll go about decision. I'll go unanimous decision. I'll say Jack Shore stays defensively responsible here. Moving on down, we got a strawweight bout between Elise Reed versus Corey Poppins. McKenna, highly touted prospect coming out of Wales. She trains over at Team Alpha Male. 2 fights we've seen her here in UFC contests with Vanessa Demopoulos in the Contender Series and Kay Hansen. And then we're on the other side here. A very similar situation for Elise Reed fighting a Contender Series alumni in Hillary Rose. Beating Jasmine Judas Vicious, as you know, who came off a winning in her debut in the UFC, and then losing to Sajar Eubanks on short notice. Sajar beat her in the first round, but she's a very, very physical specimen. Got her down and mangled her. I really like the straight shots here on Elise Reed. I think she's got great boxing, and I think she's going to be able to kind of ward off the offense of Corey McKenna. I mean, if I look at some of her fights, yeah, she goes for some takedowns in some spots, but sometimes in these fights, the grappling was initially on the other side, and she kind of just had a reversal. I don't see Elise Reed initially any grappling in this spot. She's got a solid 3-inch of reach, and she's got nasty body kicks, you know, and she's a tough girl. She's 29 to a 22-year-old, right? I think Elise Reed has been in the military as well, teaching Taekwondo for the military. She's a Taekwondo black belt. She's in there fighting in a tough organization, not getting, not getting planned scraps for her like Corey McKenna. And Corey McKenna's still so young. I heard her talking about she was dealing with some concussion issues in her interview, and Elise Reed's coming off a first round where she got absolutely dominated. She's looking to come back and showcase that she's a star of a fighter. So if I have to make a pick here, I like the dog here at, what should we have her at, plus 215. Corey McKenna's 22 years old, and 2 wins that aren't that impressive, man. And minus 270, you gotta like the dog spot here. It could be a close fight, and Corey McKenna gets the hometown rub by decision, but I like Elise Reed to win this fight by unanimous decision and really shock the masses with her power and her straight pop. She's got some nasty body kicks, man. And I just don't see Corey McKenna dominating her on the mat the way Sarge did. 2 different size individuals with 2 different experience levels. So I like Elise Reed to shock y'all. And she's a former flyweight coming down to strawweight. That's a woman. That's a woman versus a young child, 22 years old. Come on. Moving on down, very similar matchup. We got the prophesized Muhammad Mokaev versus Cody Durden. Now, Mokaev, very similar to Jack Shore, coming to the UK scene. He's on a 29-fight win streak if you include the amateurs. I know they like to label him a Dagestani fighter, but I came onto the idea that he started most of his training here in England. England's wrestling program isn't that fantastic. And another thing you have to understand, too, on the lower level scales, if you're a grappler, you're going to win a lot of fights. Cody Durden has USA wrestling credentials. He's got decent boxing. He's training over there at an American Top Team in Coconut Creek. Muhammad is 21 years old, and he's going to open up a ginormous pay-per-view here, man. You see this so many times. Even Islam Makhachev, as scary and highly touted as he was, he came into the UFC and got KO'd early. These things happen. Do I think this is going to happen in this situation? The gas tank of Cody Durden worries me, because in all these fights we've seen him in, he starts great and then wilts off here. But at 9 years the elder, with 15 professional fights, already dancing in the UFC to a draw, a loss, and then a loss that he was winning until he got hit with the flying triangle, and then QRA Liang, a fight which was close, but he really started to slow down from that QRA Liang pressure. Muhammad Mokaev is so young in this spot at minus 400. I'm going to pick him to win as far as prediction goes here. I'm going to side with the fact that he might be one of the greatest prospects we've seen in a while. 21 years old, already 29 fights. I mean, and winning every one of them every minute. He's a savage. I would bet Cody Durden with my own cash. Throw a little pizza money, throw a little beer money on Cody Durden. But as far as prediction goes here, I'm going to go with the prophesized Muhammad Mokaev at minus 400. That's unbettable to me. And I do think Cody Durden can give him a veteran lesson here. So I will be looking very closely to see how this fight goes after the first round. And probably sprinkle a little bit in and really maybe lock in. If this first round goes, very wild and forces Muhammad to expel a lot of energy trying to showcase his debut in front of the UFC, this is a big moment for him, right? Even though he's coming in with 29 fights, that's a lot of experience for a 21-year-old, right? I'm going to pick him in the predictions to win by submission, but I think he's worth a live bet for Cody Durden. So Muhammad Mokaev by submission. Moving on down, they canceled the Nathaniel Wood fight. So that is it, actually, for the breakdowns here of UFC London. Wonderful card. I'm very excited. Excuse me. I got some Cage Warriors action going on today. We got some PFL action going on today. It's been excellent. We got our day's full of fights today, and we got an early start tomorrow. I'm very, very, very thankful for all these MMA promotions, guys. Even if you're not watching the mainstream fights, you're never really gonna have a tough time finding scraps. And there's some good scraps all around the world, man. Like I said, love this card, and I'm gonna be posting the bet slips right here. I'm gonna have 2 parlays for the People's Parlay of the week. Not to mention, obviously, you guys already saw the winnings at the beginning of this video. Very excited to come at you guys next week again too, man. This is we're getting spoiled with these fight contents from the UFC. So I just want to thank you guys again for checking out Southpaw Picks and all the new subscribers for taking the time to check us out. We're doing phenomenal this year. Ride along and let's make some money and beat the bookies. This is Southpaw Picks. Catch you later.